Most men don't know they can get breast cancer.
The median age of breast cancer diagnosis for men varies by race. For example, black men tend to be diagnosed at a younger age than white men. And black men have a higher breast cancer mortality rate than white men and Hispanic men. Men get breast cancer too.
Don't delay seeing a doctor. For more information or to learn about support resources, email info@ColemanGreaterDetroit.org.
Good morning, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33 WHPR, Comcast 91 or 90, in Detroit, and all over the world, courtesy of the World Wide Web. I am very excited about this morning's show. We're devoting it to cancer. Not that we're devoted to cancer, we're devoted to wiping out cancer. And I have, on my second segment, I have Jeff Cade from Chicago. He wrote a great book called Battleground Cancer. And first and foremost, I'd like to introduce you to Gwen Moore. She's the director of the Susan G. Komen.
So I am chairman of the board of directors for Susan G. Komen, Greater Detroit.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. It was just so funny that you were talking about that at book club meeting,
yes.
and here we go. And why don't you tell people, and it's so funny because in Jeff's book, he talks about Susan G. Komen and how that started. Too. So why don't you tell the audience, because they've heard of the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure and all of that, but they probably don't know who Susan G. Komen was. Would you talk about that?
Okay, so Nancy Brinker actually started this organization as a tribute to her sister who had breast cancer and died from breast cancer. So she was committed to leaving a legacy for her sister so that people would never forget what had happened to her sister, and inspiring others who were suffering with breast cancer to continue to spread awareness and to educate people because it is something that, if caught early, can be treated, and there is a very good chance for survival. So it's just it was really important to her that people understood the importance of getting a mammogram, going to the doctor, and knowing their bodies.
Oh, okay. And we're going to need you to speak a little louder.
Okay.
Okay, well, as far as breast cancer is concerned, I remember, well, as a little girl, they used to have on television about the signs of breast cancer, a lump in the breast or elsewhere, that kind of thing as a little girl.
Yes.
And I remember all of a sudden one day I said, oh, I have a lump in the... I was a little girl. I didn't know it was the beginning of me growing breasts, but I was so scared. I went to my mother. I cried. I said, I have a lump in the breast or elsewhere. That's exactly what I said. She said, Brenda, you okay? I said, no, I have to go to a doctor as a little girl.
That is
I
excellent.
really took in those steps.
You were noticing a change in your body, and that's what's really important.
Yes. And then in about 1964, 65, my grandmother had a mastectomy, and I was just I was trying to understand that, and I said, you mean you could really lose a breast? That's when I really became aware of it. So is it something that can run in your family or what?
So it definitely runs in your family. If there's a history of breast cancer in your family, then you are far more likely to get breast cancer. And so anyone that has a parent or a sister or someone in their family that has breast cancer, there's a closer schedule of mammograms that you should be getting,
Right.
probably yearly, so
Right.
that so that we are always monitoring your status. So definitely, even for men, which is one of the things that we're also going to talk
Right,
about this
right.
morning, it's history. So if there's a history of breast cancer, then there's a higher risk for men as
And
well.
if their moms had breast cancer.
Yes,
probably.
moms, grandparents, anyone in that line of your immediate family.
And we have a couple of videos that we are going to be showing, the short video clips
Yeah.
and stuff. And so as soon as Sean is ready with those, we'll show those. But with breast cancer, like, it isn't the death sentence it used to be. I've known so many women who have been diagnosed with it who have beat it
Yes.
and not having to have a radical mastectomy, sometimes just a lumpectomy.
Yes, yes. So, and that's why they say early detection is really important. So, part of the reason that we have loss of life a lot of times is, of course, related to insurance and people's ability to get to the doctor, pay for those doctor visits, pay for those treatments, and that's where Susan G. Komen comes in. We provide funding to organizations throughout the community to ensure that everyone who wants to get a mammogram has access to the funding and to the doctors that are able to do that. In our partnership with Ford Motor Company, recently we announced that Ford Go Ride is providing free transportation to all cancer patients for their treatment sessions, which is a hindrance. We don't have a
Right.
great public transportation system, and
Right.
while you initially may have family that are able to take you to your appointments, that everybody goes back to work and you still have 3 or 4 months of treatment ahead of you. So it's major that Ford Motor Company is partnering with Susan G. Komen to provide
It certainly
transportation.
is. So how do people find out about these places?
So for the transportation, they can call 1-800-GO-RIDE. That's 1-800-GO-RIDE. And you'll be able to talk to someone, schedule an appointment, and receive transportation for your appointments.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's wonderful, but like I say, a lot of people don't know. That's why I want to have you on
Yes.
to talk about this. Now, a lot of people heard first that, what was his name?
Matthew Knowles.
No, Richard Roundtree.
Richard Roundtree, yes.
Yes, he had breast cancer.
Yes,
And everybody said, a shaft?
exactly.
And,
Shaft does not get breast cancer, and that's really how he felt, and which is why he was not as public about that announcement, because it was very embarrassing for him to think that men could get breast cancer, because most men don't know they have breast, unless not they can get breast cancer.
Right. So what are some of the signs that men should look for?
So again, if there's a history of breast cancer in your family, and there's actually
Wait, do they have the same kind of exam that we had?
no, they don't. And so you also can get a discharge, and that's really one of the
Oh,
most
really?
common factors for men is a discharge from your breast. And there's also a gene, and I'm gonna look on the sheet so I don't get that gene wrong, but there's a gene that you can be tested for, and that really is a very strong indicator for men that they have breast cancer.
Right. They say at risk, older age, this gene, BRCA,
Yes, thank you.
half gene mutations, family history, Comcast, well, not Comcast,
Yeah, so
Comastia.
enlargement of your breast tissue. So if
Okay.
you notice that your breast tissue is larger than normal, and that's why it's important to know your body, because these changes are subtle sometimes. And so when you notice those things, that you immediately seek attention from a doctor is very important.
Now, there's a syndrome here, Klinefelter's.
Yes.
Klinefelter syndrome, a genetic condition related to high levels of estrogen
Yes.
in the body.
Yes. And women have high levels as well,
Yes.
but
Yes.
in men, it's more related to their breast. That is a large indicator of, having a susceptibility to breast cancer.
Wow. So it's good to talk to your doctor, and but men sometimes do not go to the doctor as vigilantly as women do.
They do not, and that's why we have launched our new campaign, Men Get Breast Cancer Too, to make men more aware of knowing your body, paying attention, um, and being able to understand those changes in your body and to go to the doctor. November is Men's Health Awareness Month, so that's one of the reasons that we selected this month, because in addition to breast cancer, all the other prostate and all those things, we want men to be aware of their bodies. We want them to live long lives, and doing that requires you to seek attention, get those physicals, and notice those changes in your body.
So we want to encourage men. And what other kind of ways are you getting the word out?
So, we actually launched the Men Get Breast Cancer Too this week at the National 100 Black Men Barbershop conversation.
I wish I would have known about that. I love hearing men talk. I love barbershop conversations.
Yeah, so thanks to Bill Luce, who's the president of 100 Black Men here in Detroit. This is a traveling barbershop that was in Oakland, California, I think yesterday, and is traveling around the country talking about economic empowerment, men's health, and all of those things. So we had a wonderful audience and a great conversation at the barbershop.
What were some of the things they talked about?
Oh my gosh! So they had Freddie Haynes from Friendship Baptist Church, Ken Harris. So a great panel, Benny Napoleon, and they just really talked about all of the things that keep us from being successful,
Yes.
whether it's not receiving the proper health care, not having access. We had some audience members who had been imprisoned, and then they talked about the opportunities that they had, but also many of the things that hindered them from successfully re-entering life
Society,
outside. Yes,
right.
yes. And what can we do to assist them to become great citizens that we know that they can be? So it was just a
Because
great
most
conversation.
crimes are not recidivists. They don't continue to happen. A lot of people do learn their lesson.
And they talked about being able to have a support system, because that keeps you from going back into that life
Right,
of crime,
right.
When you don't have a support system to help you get back into the system, get a job, and a place to stay, and all of those things that really make you feel as if you can contribute to society.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the men, so what do you want the men to do? Go to their doctors, right?
Yes. So part of our campaign,
Yeah.
yes, so I want them to go to their doctors, but what we've done in terms of, being able to get the message out. So we kicked off at the barbershop series, and then we reached out into the community for men to serve as representatives, to encourage other men to get checkups. And those are a couple of the videos that you have. We have Police Chief James Craig. We have Dave Bing. Just a number of men in the community who have either had friends who have suffered from breast cancer. It's a little bit more common than we know, but men just don't
They
talk
don't
about
talk about
They
it.
don't talk
They
about
don't
it.
talk about it. And I saw that some other things to look for is the skin on your chest, dimples, dimples or puckers.
Yes, it puckers, and especially the area around their nipples. So to just be cognizant, again, of changes in your body, because those are all changes to things that you see every day.
And they said that the nipple pulls in
Yes, yes.
towards their chest area.
Yeah, so it's very important to look at your body every day and to be able to notice when it's changing.
And the lump and everything too.
Yes.
And there's different tests also that you need. And they have down here, get an x-ray of your chest area.
Yes.
And other tests like an ultrasound or a biopsy.
Yes, and those typically come after you notice the initial changes,
Right.
right? So once they notice the, like a discharge or your nipple inverted, then they will do those additional tests to verify.
And then there's treatment.
And then there's treatment.
And, some people don't go to the doctor because they just don't want to know. I mean,
They're
honestly,
afraid. They're afraid.
honestly,
Yes.
we got to be truthful about that. And it says this test, if tests show you have breast cancer, you will need treatment. Treatment depends on you and the type of breast cancer you have and the stage, because there are several stages of breast cancer, correct?
Yes, it's the same as with women. The earlier that you're detected, the better your chances of recovery are. So stage 1 is very early stages. Stage 4 is late stages and can be metastatic, which means that you will not recover from it. So that's why seeing a doctor early is the best thing that you can do. Any change that you notice is just really important. It's better to go to the doctor and have them say everything's fine than to go too late and say there's nothing we can do.
I'm sure many of us have known somebody who went too late. And because I know of somebody who went finally, this was a woman, but it was stage 4. And you can, you live for a while, and then sometimes they could get it. Well, stage 4, is it beyond recovery?
In most cases, it is, and that your breast, it has metastasized.
Metastasized.
Yes, and so it's just keeping you comfortable and those kind of things. So that's really why what you see primarily is education around early treatment and early diagnosis. Because the earlier we catch it, then there are many alternatives and things that we can do to ensure that you're successful and that you receive the treatment that you need and are able to go on with your life.
Right. Now, we don't want people to think, a lot of men have breasts. I mean,
Yes.
that may protrude and stuff like that. Everybody doesn't have that Idris Elba chest.
The pecs.
That's right. So I don't think everybody should get scared if they have, little breasts.
No.
My grandson, he's a big kid, but he has breasts,
Yes, no, it's all the symptoms. It's not that you have them or don't have them. It's the symptoms. Noticing whether there's a discharge, there's pain around your nipple area, all of those things.
Well, now November, you say, is Men's Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
Now, Ford Motor Company, they got involved in this. Why and how?
Well, Ford Motor Company has been our partner since inception. So they are one of the first partners that Susan G. Komen had. They're
so
a national
happy.
sponsor, yes. So they have just been tremendous in the amount of money they have raised.
That's what
millions and millions of dollars. They have a clothing line called Warriors in Pink. You
Really?
can go online, www.warriorsinpink.com, and they have scarves and polo shirts and all kinds of wonderful apparel. And 100% of the proceeds from the sale of that apparel goes to Susan G. Komen.
And you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to get back to, and you said insurance. Aren't there places that will give you a mammogram and you don't have insurance? I've heard of some places are giving women free mammograms and stuff like that.
Yes.
But how do?
So a lot of those places are the places that we fund and other organizations, right? So currently we're funding Access to provide treatment and we're working with McLaren. We provide a grant to
Oh, yes,
McLaren,
yes,
and
yes.
McLaren will
They've
ensure
been doing
that
this
you.
for a number of
Yes,
years. Yes.
yes. So that's another place that you can go and get treatments, and many others. Most of
Now,
the
that's not refined
hospitals
to
do.
Oakland or Macomb County, is it?
Oh, no, no, no,
Okay.
no. It's Wayne, Oakland, Macomb. There are many resources available, and you can check with your institution as to what those resources are. But it's important that we fund organizations like Susan G. Komen and others, because we are the resources that make sure that um, people are able to get the treatment that they need.
And a lot of people, they race for the cure.
They race for
I
the
mean,
cure.
that day is amazing.
That is our largest fundraiser, and it raises, this year we raised over $500,000 that we grant out to organizations to support women being able to have, hair pieces or wigs and free of cost, to be able to
What about getting prosthesis?
getting prosthesis. Many of the things that women need to feel whole again after going through something like breast cancer treatment are provided by the funds that we raise. So we appreciate everyone who supports Race for the Cure.
Yeah, and people race for other people.
Yes.
Yes, I had a very dear friend. In fact, she was a former student. I mean, fitness person, had been Mrs. Michigan, all of that, and she kept it to herself. It was she and her husband. They knew, but even her own sister and mom did not know. I don't know how she did this, but I mean, we were very close, and we did some little programs together. She did fitness, I did poetry, all this stuff. And then one day, it was just, she said, yes, she had been in because the hospital, her blood count had gone down. And I said, oh my God, but then the weirdest thing, because we had talked, and one day I called her, and her voicemail answer, sorry you missed us, blah, 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 blah. And my daughter came home later in the day, said, Mom, did you hear about her? She passed away. And I had just left a message. I didn't know. And it was, her sister told me that even at the hospital, she said, Doctor, please tell us. And she did not want
Anyone to know.
anybody to know. But she had a mastectomy. I did not know that. She had it some years earlier.
Okay.
And she still kept up fitness. She'd be on Channel 4 doing fitness and so forth. And it was just a heartbreak.
It is.
And I don't know, because she was a healthy eater and so forth. And there are things they say you can do.
Well, a lot of it is genetics. So being healthy is great, but it's also genetics, and probably that has a greater influence. If someone in her family had breast cancer previously, that would significantly impact her. Whether she would get it or
Right,
not.
right.
So so there are many factors, and being healthy is great. We need to do that, but we also need to know our family history.
Oh, I believe we have to know our family health history.
We have
That is
to know
very
that.
important, and families a lot of times don't talk about it as they should.
Yes, I have many people who said, I knew my grandmother passed from something, but nobody talked about it. It was like quiet. Nobody knew that she had breast cancer. And so that prohibited their parents and the
for you to be
grandchildren.
proactive.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's really important that we understand our health history and the history of, our parents, our grandparents, and not just for breast cancer, for many other
For
diseases.
many other ailments, diabetes and so forth. And like I said, my grandmother had that mastectomy, but my mom, who will be 100 next month, she never had the issue. And I say, my goodness, I've had a bit of an issue, where I've had to go every year, every 6 months, go in.
Okay.
But, I heard about that skipping a generation type thing, but I try to stay active with that. We're having a bit of a technical problem because I wanted to show Dave Bing talking about this, and Randy Henry, he also is
Yes.
involved. He was just on the show about 3 weeks ago.
I grew up with Randy Henry.
Yes, you
So
told me. Yes, you told me. He is such a great
he
advocate
is
for so
such
many things.
Yes, he is such a great community activist and very involved with our young people and our youth. And so we were proud to have Randy participate in this campaign. So we're excited, perhaps, for the second segment. You know, the video will be up and running.
Right.
And it's,
Oh, as
it's
soon as we
related,
can.
so-
We had some issues here at the station, I think, last night, and some things didn't reboot like they should have.
Okay.
But the show is on, so
Yes,
we're
yes,
on.
yes.
So, oh, here was another thing I was going to go back into a little, like, Gwen Moore's history, because you grew up here in Detroit,
I
correct?
am homegrown Detroit. Cass Tech, yay. I know all my Cass Tech.
Technicians. I know. And then I get so many technicians on this show, and they're so proud. Cass Tech, you know.
Yes, we're our own little sorority fraternity.
Yes. And then what?
And then I went to Davenport University. I actually was working and going to school, so I worked at initially at the Metropolitan Detroit Youth Foundation.
Oh, really?
I worked there I ran a dropout prevention program called
Oh.
12 Together. As a matter of fact, Reginald Dozier, who's an attorney now, was at the barbershop series, and he was one of my volunteer mentors when I ran that
Really?
program. Yes, so had some really great folks with that. So it was a dropout prevention program for ninth graders, and then I moved into corporate and went to work for Ford Motor Company, where
Right.
I was communications manager for both the CIO for over 15 years.
What's the
and then
CIO?
Chief Information Officer, so the IT person. And then I ended my career in Ford Customer Service Division, working for Frederick Tony, who actually just received an award at the Rainbow Push for being such a wonderful leader. So I've had
Ford
a
really
wonderful
stepped to the
career.
forefront in a lot of different things.
Yes, and that's the way that I initially got involved with Race for the Cure, because they are so community oriented in terms of supporting charities in the community. And so they were sponsored for Race for the Cure, and my vice president was the executive champion. So we really work to engage employees. We always have the largest corporate team. Yay for it. So that was really my entree to Race for the Cure. And so when I left, and they, because initially we were presented by Carmanos. So they were the organization
Okay.
so they were the organization that sort of worked to help put on the Race for the Cure for many, many years.
Yes.
They are a value partner. Hi, Katrina Studvent, who's over at Carmanos. So she initially started at Coleman and then went over to Carmanos. So they were the presenting sponsor. And within the last 4 or 5 years, we actually became a dedicated affiliate for Susan G. Komen. And so we created a board of directors,
with the
and
race,
here we are.
With the Race for the Cure, how far do they run? 5K or what?
The race is a 5K. It's also it's a timed race, so a lot of people use that as a qualifier for other marathons.
Oh,
So
really?
it's a walk and a timed race for those that are utilizing the race to as a qualifying
Where does
score.
it usually take place? Downtown?
Yeah, so it initially started on Woodward, but once we built our new transportation system on Woodward, we moved to the DeQuinder Cut, we moved to Shane Park for a couple of years, and now we're on the DeQuinder Cut, which is fabulous. It's just a beautiful piece of
I have to get down
land.
there. I hear about it.
Oh, it is wonderful. So I think everybody's happy to be down there. It's a great walk, and we're looking forward to it. And we should have information on the date for the 2020 walk.
Aren't you
very
amazed?
soon.
2020.
I know. When you say that number, it's just
It makes you feel old. It's like 2020.
2020.
It's like the Jetsons. Weren't they in 2020 when we were?
Well, remember, we used to watch television and the Jetsons put something in a little oven and they pushed the button and then it was done.
And now we're there.
We're
right?
there. And on Star Trek, they had a flip phone. We've been there and we're past that. But that was something in
I started
19...
my car from my phone this morning. So.
Yes. I
So
mean,
technology is moving.
it is moving so much, and I was hearing about Alexa this morning, and
Yes.
people have that, and I don't know if I want to spend the time programming it, but Alexa, turn on the light. I mean, come on.
But be careful because she's listening, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have it. She's listening, but more so information. And this is what we want to do: is get information out to the
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Let people know, especially as far as the men are concerned, also that they are susceptible to
Yes,
breast cancer.
Yes, they are. So when Richard Roundtree came out, and then recently
Matthew
Knowles came out, and he actually walked and raced for the cure in Houston.
Did he?
Yes, he did. So it was
Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's father.
Yes, and Solange. I always try to
Solange,
include her, so she would
yes,
feel like
yes,
not
yes.
her dad also, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so he actually walked and raced for the cure in Houston this year, and hopefully will become a little bit more engaged with the organization. But that was a great opportunity that made us stop and think. You know, we haven't spent a lot of time talking to men about breast cancer. We've really spent a lot of our energy on women. And so we still are 100%, ensuring that women are educated because they have a much higher risk of getting breast cancer than men. But we also wanted to make men aware that they can get breast cancer, that there are resources available at Susan G. Komen.
And they can survive it.
And you can survive it. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of. And when you see Dave Bing's video, that's the one thing he talks about.
Right.
Is that you, as men and as NBA players, you're sometimes pushed to ignore your body, to play through the pain, to play through all of those things. And
Right.
so you have to stop and think, no, I need to get it checked out. I need to understand what's going on with my body. I need to see a doctor.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gwen, so much for coming on and giving us that information. Could you give us that number for rides again?
It's 1-800-GO, G-O, RIDE, R-I-D-E. And I'm sorry I don't have the number, but that's easy to remember. 1-800-GO-RIDE, or you can call the Komen office in Greater Detroit.
Komen.
Yes.
Okay. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I have Jeff Cade on, and we're going to talk about his book, Battleground Cancer.
A few years ago, one of my boyhood friends, he said, I got breast cancer. And it kind of shocked me because I had never heard of a man having breast cancer. It's not something that you need to be afraid of. It's not something you need to be ashamed of. It's a problem, and the only way we're going to solve that problem is to talk about it.
For more information, go to ColemanGreaterDetroit.org or call 248-234-8851.
I'm back. I'm with a gentleman from Chi-Town. This is Jeff Cade, everybody. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. I'm a little cold, but I'm Chi-Town, D-Town, we're here together, embracing the cold weather.
Now,
Thank you so much.
Let's get a little history first. Now, you have family here?
I do have family here. I have a brother, a sister, a host of nieces and nephews that I love very much, and I get down here when I can, usually about twice a year.
And you weren't born here, were you?
Born on the south side of Chicago. I'm a South Sider.
Okay.
South side of Chicago, yes.
The South Side.
South side.
Around here we'd say East Side, but South Side. And you wrote this book, and you have a family history of cancer. correct?
Yes, unfortunately, my father died of pancreatic cancer in 1991, and my mother passed of breast cancer in 1997. So
Now,
there's a little history there.
How old was your dad when he was diagnosed?
Uh, you know, pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed, I want to say, in '89, in 1990, and it was at an aggressive stage. And unfortunately, God called him home early in '91. But it was an aggressive form of cancer.
The thing about pancreatic cancer, I think it kind of scares a lot of people because there are very few symptoms. And a lot of times when people go and are diagnosed, they get that sentence.
Yes, yes, it is. It's an aggressive form of cancer, but particularly with my father's situation, he consumed a lot of things, I think, that led or contributed to his demise. More specifically, his
You
favorite.
talked about Coke,
Oh my
which is my
God.
favorite drink. When
Let
I
me-
read that,
I'm going to say to everybody, I am not a nutritionist, I am not here to judge, but I will say, please do everything in moderation. He enjoyed his can of Coca-Cola, have a Coke and a smile. However, he kept a 6 to 12 pack on the regular in the house, and there's no telling what he was doing at work. And I think over time, he consumed it over 30 years. And so obviously we all know that, Coca-Cola and other good brands, they have a lot of sugar content.
yeah.
But more importantly, there's another content or compound that's more aggressive within our bloodstream, and that's called high fructose corn syrup, HFCS.
Right.
And
right.
so that's pretty much, a chemical compound that serves no nutritional value or purpose in our bodies. And over time, once consumed, you do have an increased risk of diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and even cancer.
And they've been taking high fructose corn syrup out of a lot of things, but not as aggressively enough.
Not enough. Unfortunately, in decades ago, no one really knew what it was. It is an active ingredient in most food groups, and you're right. The FDA started to get a little bit more aggressive, and with the content on packaging and labeling. But all I can say is, go through your cabinets, go through your household,
Look at the
and look at those ingredients. Look at those
Yeah.
ingredients, and stay away from high fructose corn syrup.
Now, your mother was diagnosed with cancer before your father was, wasn't she?
Yes, in 1987, she was diagnosed, and she fought cancer to the end, and God graced me and our family with having an additional 10 more years with her. With her on her journey, she started really aggressively using the Western medicine, of course, that we all are familiar with.
Right.
But towards the end of her life, she actually had a stroke, and I
Yeah.
believe the stroke kind of it ensued or moved the cancer aggressively again, and that stroke she had when she was driving, and she was 10 years or 9.5 years. It was in remission, and when that stroke happened, it kind of rekindled some things, unfortunately, and then she decided, you know what, I do not want to partake in Western medicine anymore, and I want to go into the
A more
area
holistic approach,
of
didn't you?
alternative holistic support, yes, including acupuncture
Yes.
and drinking black herbal Chinese tea.
Now, how did the acupuncture work with her? Did it work well with her or what? Because I've known some people who've had it and it's worked well with them.
Great question, Brenda. I remember that due to the stage, how it was, the cancer had resurfaced. It was a little bit more aggressive. It actually kind of helped calm the cancer cells along with the Chinese black herbal tea.
Really?
It really didn't. It kind of calmed them. It didn't. It helped her, but because it was an aggressive. It was an aggressive. It was just very aggressive, and I think the combination of the acupuncture, and the herbal tea, it really made a difference.
Wow. So what does the herbal tea do? I mean, why is this time? Because I might have to go stock up.
Yeah, yeah, you will. You will. There are a lot of teas out there, and pretty much they are powerful antioxidants, and they help flush the toxins out of our bodies. We have black tea, you have green tea, red tea, and white tea, and they really are similar to alkaline water
Really?
in terms of allowing to flush out the toxins in your body.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Now, another thing I really liked about your book was how candid you were about after the passing of your mother, how you kind of sunk into, after a while, you sunk into a depression. And why don't you tell us about that? I mean, I felt your grieving. You really grieved.
I did, and I think all of us need a time and place to grieve. It happened, when I lost my parents, specifically, especially my mother in '97. It put me into a sunken place, if you will, and so there was some times where I was obviously lonely, but I had to push myself out of that situation with courage and perseverance, and just through my book, which is very therapeutic for me, and allowing to hopefully add value and impact to others who maybe have similar situations. It put me in a place where I was putting a mask on. I was hiding, and I felt as though no one understands, because most of my family and friends at that time, they either had both parents or they had one of them.
Well, when you say you were wearing the mask, were you wearing the mask like everything was mellow, everything was fine?
It's odd. I recall, you get your phone calls about how you're doing and the condolences and the sympathies, and I really was like, yeah, I'm doing okay, but I really wasn't, and my voice was not projected as such.
And so people knew that you weren't really doing okay?
No, not really, because I try to do things to keep me busy, and so there was a time when I had some good partners of mine, and we would do events, and we would do wine tastings and jazz events, and that would keep me kind of busy after work. And when I would get home, it would be so late, I would crash and get ready for the next day. So
Right.
it was just
A
an
cycle.
ongoing cycle routine, but it helped me to kind of keep my mind off of things. Yes.
So how did you start to come out of it?
I guess I can't.
Wait,
Sure.
maybe I'll say this, because you kind of talked to yourself a little too, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
A
Yes.
lot of us do that.
And sometimes I even answer myself.
Yeah, well, yeah,
yeah. I answer myself.
You
too.
know, yeah, I mean, because sometimes too, with that talk, you're being truthful sometimes. But if you break it down and really say what you got to say, you'll find out how you're really living.
I have to give praise to my Almighty, the supreme bosses of the universe. Prayer helps things.
Yeah.
And it really helped my self-esteem and my confidence as I had to go through this journey. And my family was very supportive, from Chicago to Detroit to California. But it was different when you're by yourself and you're closed in, when the phone stops ringing, the cars stop coming in, and you just have to go about your daily life. So it's kind of like pulling up your bootstraps and say, you know what, let's move on, let's see it through, and move past, and don't forget the memories. Remember the memories, but you still have to move on with life.
Absolutely. So, what were your first steps coming out of it? Coming out of that kind of funk you were in?
I was in a hole. You're right. I was kind of in that rabbit hole, right? And for me, because I was still in corporate America. I was still doing things in terms of event planning and marketing and promotions. But it came to the point where I started doing more reading. I started doing more research as it relates to health and wellness. And I think that was the sidebar. That was the way to me to get one foot out of that hole, and to say, you know what, reading and being honest and being truthful and setting intention and just being honest with yourself. And some of it, as I said before, you grieve. You have to grieve. I miss my parents, very much. Each day there's a void, but at the same time, you have to move on and live on with your own
Yeah,
journey.
you do, because you know your parents would want you to. And then you mentioned Jermaine in the book.
Yes.
Yes.
My best half, my best half and partner, who has really helped me a lot. And at the same time, I lost my father-in-law to liver cancer.
Yes.
And I was within the last 3 or 4
More
years.
cancer.
And it was tough. And so she had to, we all go through our new beginnings. And that was a new beginning for all of us. Even my young son, that was the first time that he really had to adapt to a situation.
Papa. He called him Papa.
We called him Papa.
Yes, and it's just, you wonder, it's not funny, but it's interesting when you see a little kid who has lost somebody they love, and just helping them through that, because that's a first.
It was a first for him, and he didn't know how to respond. He just didn't. He would actually go up to the casket and he would ask those questions, and why is he so still, and wow, what's going on? But I think he was 6 or 7, and it was interesting. He was very intrigued, but we had to tell him obviously the truth and what's going on. So we had a lot of support from his, our family and godparents and things of that nature. So he misses him very much, just like my wife and I do.
Well, you have here, after you lost your father-in-law, you have 3 R's: relax, relate, and release.
Yes.
Let's talk about them. What did these help you do? Take that break you needed, or what?
Yeah, I call that the triple R recipe. We all have to relax, relate, and release, actually every day. Every day is
We
important.
should.
We should. And when we know better, we should do better, correct? Right, Brenda?
Yeah, we should. Sometimes we go against our better judgment, but we know better, we do better.
Exactly. And sometimes when you are going to bed at night, it's good to take a couple deep breaths. It's good to relax and release and understand how your day has gone, but at the same time, get some rest and start off fresh.
A lot of people think that just laying down makes them rest, but that's not it.
No. Some of it is, to each its own. Some of it is just closing your eyes and meditating and thanking your Almighty for a great day and being healthy, healed, and whole. And the next day in the morning, you wake up fresh and still have that thankfulness and just being grateful for the next day and being able to breathe and be 6 feet up instead of 6 feet under. And just being able to acknowledge and understand that you're here another day.
And that's being thankful. That's being
Yes, it is.
thankful.
Yes,
Now,
it is.
relating and releasing, and let's talk about releasing quickly.
Sure. So, releasing is being able to release any type of tension and not holding on to any negative or pessimistic views, what people say, what people do, or even if it's self-damaging, being able to just release anything that's going on throughout your day. And sometimes you just got to give it to God. Let go and let God, and let Him take care of the rest.
And so you really did your research as far as foods and everything that can eat to help you not only stay healthy, but maybe combat some of the things associated with cancer. And one of them, you talk about vitamin D. And that's something I know my doctor's given me, vitamin D. They say we don't get enough sun around here.
Well, yeah, as you can tell, I need some, right? Especially being in Chicago. We're about to go through this massive winter. I'm so looking forward to some vitamin D. Sunlight's important. That sunlight is a very good form of vitamin D. Obviously, you have the calcium tablets. I say everything in moderation, but vitamin D is important. anytime I may have some milk, it might be 2%, but I try and get a lot of the vitamin D, whether it be in orange juice or, of course, like you said, the sunlight, because it's so important just to get those rays in your system. Just don't overdo it.
And fruit. But you know, some fruits have a lot of sugar, so you have to do your research on fruit.
You know what? I think back in the days, you know, when they say an apple a day keeps a doctor away, that apple is different this time around, because you have a lot of things going on with GMOs. And so GMO stands for genetically modified organism. And so I'm always trying to include, my family in our household, we try always to include organic, natural sources of food free of GMOs in our diet.
How do you find those?
So with GMOs, there's some things to watch out for. GMOs, there's corn, there's soy, there's canola, tomatoes, potatoes, squash, and there's some others that can be genetically modified. So you really have to go, you know, I look at it as going to a healthy food store, going to an area where you're getting your fresh fruits and vegetables, and make sure that, you know, that if you can afford that, make sure it's organic.
Right. If you can afford it.
If you can afford it, but you know what? It comes down to choices, and it comes down to what you want for your well-being.
Well, you have colonoscopy, and that's something that we should have. They say every 5 years, but then when you get my last one, my doctor said, "See you in 10 years." I said, "Ooh," I got excited, but I'm nervous about it, you know.
I raised my hand. I had mine. I had mine.
We
I had
should
mine.
have those.
Regular checkups are very important. Follow your doctor's orders. You know, and I mentioned this because we talked about sunlight, and I want to share something with you. There's an acronym out there, and you might be familiar with it, but I want to share with the audience of SERDS. I call them a doctor, but it's SERDS, SERDS. Well, we mentioned one, that was sunlight. E is for exercise. Got to have your exercise plan or routine. R, we talked about, was actually rest. Got to have rest. S, it also D, I'm sorry, comes down to our diet. Comes to our diet and understanding the nutritional content and labeling on packaging. And S is all about self-esteem and just projecting confidence within yourself.
I was sitting in a parking lot yesterday when my grandson he was in the barber shop. So I was sitting in the strip mall, just in the parking lot. And there are a couple of restaurants. There one, a soul food restaurant where you could just pick up your food and so forth. And the other, a delicatessen. And I sat there watching.
Choices, huh?
And what I watched, there were so many people who came out with so much extra body weight. No. I can't talk. I'm just saying, I was looking, I said, my God, you know, we got to watch what we eat because it does thwart some people were having a hard time walking, but they were full.
You know, everything is relatable to moderation.
Moderation, yeah.
Excuse me, everything is relatable to moderation because you mentioned something that was very important when you said the delicatessen. So we have to be mindful of the processing of foods. There's a lot of processed foods out there and fillers that really confuse our body, and it goes into our bloodstream. You know, me, speaking personally, I don't do any type of processed foods. I look for organic, natural sources, free of GMOs first. But second, when I have a taste for, say, turkey sandwich, I'm going to go for the turkey sandwich.
I never have a taste for a turkey sandwich.
I'm just telling you, I go for something that has no nitrates, no nitrates. No nitrates, no nitrates. And people can Google that now, because before, people didn't understand what it was.
Well, you know, honestly, this week, I ate like 4 turkey sandwiches I made, turkey sandwiches. But that's not my real choice. My real choice would be a fried bologna sandwich.
Oh.
But I haven't had one in so many years. Oh, you said moderation. I think I'm going to go pick up some bologna.
You said 4, though.
I had 4 turkey sandwiches this week.
This
One
week?
day for
Okay.
lunch, you
All
know,
right.
just
Okay.
and then one a half a sandwich and
Okay.
stuff. It was
Moderation.
no,
Moderation.
it was turkey.
Yeah, it was turkey. That won't hurt you.
Yeah,
You'll be
well,
good.
yeah. Too much of anything is abuse, though.
It is. I agree.
You also quickly we have steam a little green,
You got to steam that green. You got to steam that green.
and they should be fresh if you can, right?
Yeah, I definitely, personally, I enjoy my spinach. It has vitamin K in it. I enjoy my broccoli, my asparagus, and you know you can't go wrong with some good old-fashioned greens. What with turkey though?
Yeah, I know. I know. You have mirror, mirror on the wall, get naked or something. So what are you talking about in there?
So, with that particular piece, actually, the last guest, Gwen Moore, had mentioned some things about it. It really, you have to stand in front of the mirror and look for some things that have imperfections. For one example, how about moles? So if you're starting to see certain types of growth with moles, if they're getting bigger, you might want to go to the doctor. You have to get naked. We see each other in the mirror all the time, and if there's some things that, hey, I'm just saying, you know, some imperfections or things that didn't look right the day before that week, you might want to consider saying, what is this?
I know. I come in the mirror. I said, "What happened to my Coca-Cola figure?" You know, little things like that. But yes, you're true. You're right. We notice things about our body.
That's right. And if things look different, you need to take the advantage and be a strong proponent of yourself, for yourself.
Right, right. Well, Jeff, where can people get your book?
Thank you for asking. It is available on Amazon. Just put the title in, Battleground Cancer. But you can also go to my website, www.battlegroundcancer.com. You can also connect with me socially at jeffcade360.com, JEFFCADE360.com. That's pretty much my communication hub, which allows people to connect with me socially, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Regarding Facebook, I do have a page that if you like it, it is called Health and Wellness Cancer Prevention. And so I get a lot of engagement with that because it's all about tips and strategies, and people can, be intentional and just talk to me.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, this is Jeff Cade. His beautiful wife, Jermaine, is here also. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, because
Yes.
we had to go back and forth
Yes, we
with
did.
dates, and you had surgery and
Yes.
stuff like that. But I wish you a full recovery, great recovery, and you could do all those things.
I am excited and humbled to be here. Thank you so much, Brenda. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So we'll be back with Table Talk, and I have Kim Trent on, and I have Daryl Buchanan. Kim is going to talk about the latest controversies at Wayne State University that we're trying to understand what's going on in our town. I'll be back shortly.